Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this special holiday edition of You're Leaving Again. I'm Laura, your USO hostess, and this topic hits close to home for so many of us, especially this year. Being separated from family and loved ones is always hard during the holiday season. But we know this year that even our normal holiday traditions might be impacted for a lot of us in some way or another due to COVID-19. Whether you're experiencing a separation from an immediate family member due to the military lifestyle, or you're just experiencing some anxiety about not being able to see your greater family, there's a tendency for a lot of us to just want to get through this holiday season and focus on the year ahead. But there's so much that we can do and focus on and find joy even during this time of being apart from our loved ones. And we're so excited for the conversation with Corie and Matt today because they're going to walk us through what they're doing to stay connected during the season apart. So with that, I'd love to give a warm USO welcome to Corie and Matt Weathers. Corie, as most of you know, is holding down the home front while her husband Matt is deployed. And we just wanted to say thank you both for being with us today. It's absolutely a pleasure to host you. And I'm going to hand it off to the two of you now, but I'll be sure to join you back on camera at the end. And I'll be here in the chat box if you need anything.
Thank you, Laura. Hey, everybody, it's Corie. There he is. This is Corie and
Hello.
Matt Weathers. Matt is deployed off somewhere and I'm back at home. And if you guys have been following along on the series so far, we're just happy to have you back. And as a quick review, we just wanted to do something unique and different than maybe what you guys see out there, or what's maybe available to you when it comes to content on how to keep your military, not just your marriage, but your family strong and connected. And, this is a crazy year for everybody for a lot of reasons. And so what we wanted to do with this series called You're Leaving Again, because that's what it feels like, right? Like just when you get the family back together, it seems like somebody has to go again and you have to face it all over again. We really wanted to do a couple things. We wanted to authentically share our journey and allow the USO to kind of follow us along on our journey of going through a deployment. But we also wanted to share with you kind of what we're doing, some strategies that we're doing to stay connected. I'm a licensed professional counselor that works with military and veteran families and couples. My husband is a chaplain. And so doesn't mean that we have all the answers. And so we hope to gain some wisdom and some ideas from you guys as well. But really, this is just about us sharing our journey apart and that it's difficult, and it should be difficult because you love each other and you don't want to spend time apart. And so we wanted to be honest about that and kind of normalize any feelings that you guys have. And also maybe be about sharing some of the resources that help us and some of the goals that we're going through as well. So I'm going to let Matt, you talk here in just a second. But if you followed us through the other part of the series, this is part 3. So we did one in October that was like all of those icky feelings, the tension before your service member has to go. And then last month was just me with Matt chatting in because he was literally en route, and we were talking about ripping the Band-Aid and those feelings that you have after you have to say goodbye and how tough that is. And we talked a little bit last time about like, okay, once you have to start this thing, how do you kind of get a battle rhythm? How do you kind of face forward on the mission and be about growth individually and together? And kind of go through those feelings, sit in the pocket of those feelings, and then how do you start moving forward? And so today we wanted to take some time to talk about a couple things. One, like we're going to give you a great update on how we're doing. We're going to let you guys in on watching how we communicate and really be authentic with that. But we also wanted to talk about the holidays because that's really a tough time to go through when you're being apart, to celebrate that as a family. And so this is recorded. So if you're watching this after the fact, there's lots of holidays that you could go through during a deployment, TDY or whatever, and have to spend that time apart. And so I think this will be applicable no matter what season you're watching. So hi to my amazing husband from like across the world. It's so great to see you. It's the first time
Hi.
I've actually seen you today. So that's the smile on my face is hi.
Hi, that was a whole lot. Did you catch your breath?
I know I did. Did you hear it?
All right. I I did. It was just really just a wave just
It's
coming
just
right
so
at me.
handsome. It just took my
It's
breath
coming
away.
right at us. So yes, I am a U.S. Army chaplain, and because of that, I do need to give the disclaimer that any views that I present or that we present in the midst of this are those of me, and they do not necessarily represent the views of the Department of Defense or any of its components. So
Good job.
thank you. I'll put that script right underneath there. So thank you to your friendly Jag.
You're a JAG officer.
So yeah, so U.S. Army chaplain, getting to do one of the things, I love being with soldiers, service members, and making sure they're taken care of. The holidays for me are really interesting, simply because as a chaplain, I get an opportunity to take care of people during the holidays and provide services. But I really, there's just something, and only if you've deployed or you've seen it, and Corie's seen it because she kind of got to see it when she went on her 2015 holiday tour. You really just get to see people come together as a family because we're all separated. And whether it is, I'm going to step off camera and show something. I'll be right back.
Okay. For those of you who don't know
And
what
here I am.
Oh my gosh, that was fast.
So
Oh.
yeah, well, it's hanging right there in the office. So Corie and the boys sent this to me. So this is about all the holiday festive cheer that I've got going in my office. I've got some lights that are hanging outside, but we if your service member is doing the absolute best, whether it is like a 5-foot string of weird tinsel or just some weird wrapping paper. They're doing the best they can to make it the holidays, and it's just kind of like a Charlie Brown Christmas in most places. But you get to enjoy it with your second family. And so while I miss my family, I also love being with the family that I get to choose to be with. Or that somebody else chooses
I
that
was
I'm
about to
with,
say,
but
did you
I
choose
enjoy it.
that?
So I don't feel like I did. I don't feel like I did. But no, there's only one other place I'd rather be. But we're gonna have fun. We're gonna have a blast here for the holidays. So we're already starting to
So
cut up and enjoy that. So
can I just say that after almost 22 years of marriage, that I love the fact that I still blush when I see you on
oh,
like first time during the day to see you. So I was so
well,
glad the
hello
camera
there.
because I was like, oh my gosh, I just turned red seeing you and getting to talk to you for real. So even though there's lots of
So if I
people that are
step
just
off
kind of,
camera and then
I know, like you
if I
just
step off camera and come back, are you gonna blush again?
wouldn't you love
So
that?
yeah, just
So
constant.
no, I will say we are going to talk about that. We're going to talk about like what do you do during the holidays?
Mhm.
The big question right now, and this is why this applies whether you're going through a separation or not. And Matt and I are going through a deployment, but you might be going through a TDY, an unaccompanied tour. I know a lot of TDYs have been shut down for right now due to COVID.
Mhm.
And some of you are geo-batching for a variety of reasons, but we feel like this even applies to most people who are having to spend time apart from family members during COVID. And Christmas just isn't even feeling like Christmas anymore, at least this year. And
Mhm.
so there's a lot of angst out there. I know I'm seeing in my counseling sessions, I'm going through that myself, that the holidays are just not what we thought that they would be across the board. And then you add to that, if you are going through a military initiated separation like this, it really is a downer for sure.
Mhm.
And so we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about like, okay, what can we do, to embrace the holidays? Because I feel like we're getting ahead. I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit here, but
Mhm.
Matt mentioned that I did get to do a holiday tour with the Secretary of Defense. I think it was actually 2016, 2015, 2016, something like that. And I did it was in December. And so I got to see troops in Baghdad and in Iraq. And it was I remember going to the mail room, like they were so excited to show me.
Baghdad's in Iraq. I know
No,
you
well, I
know
mean,
that,
I
but
went to
Baghdad,
two places in Iraq.
yeah.
I also went to
So
Afghanistan.
in
It was
Erbil,
Afghanistan that I saw they had inflatables, and that was all they had was one inflatable
yeah.
Santa. That was it.
Mhm.
And I remember saying to some of the troops out in Afghanistan, I remember saying, we were having just a conversation, and we were talking about like, how do you feel about family being at home? And I had forgotten that it was December and approaching Christmas, because there was no decorations anywhere except for one measly little strand of tinsel that was wrapped around like a railing, a wooden railing next to the stairs, you know, or when I went to the mail room in Iraq, they were so excited to show me where the mail comes in, right? And it was exactly what you said. I walked in, and there was like this one little tiny string of lights, and they were so excited about that. And I'm saying all that to say it was really good for me to see that as a spouse. And I'll tell you what I walked away from that, which I think applies for today. Because you did this for us, Matt, at the beginning of COVID. You said that back in March, when you were back home with us, you said in March, we have to enter into this COVID season thinking it's like a deployment. And during a deployment, you have things and you don't have things, and you just adjust to what you don't have. And I remember kind of like bouncing back to you on that and going, yeah, but I haven't been deployed, you know? And so like, it's hard for us to adjust to that. And now here we are, December. And it really is true that I kind of envy, if I can say that, I can kind of almost envy your situation of having the minimal stuff over there, the little bit of it feeling like Christmas, because here back at home, and everything feels like it is available or could be available, and it feels like family are kind of within reach compared to maybe what it is for you. It almost feels even more difficult to say no to those things, or to choose safety, or to I don't know, it's just like it's all in your face. Holidays are in some ways, and so it's harder to kind of deal with both the feeling of it's the holidays, and also deal with the reality of the holidays aren't really what I want them to feel like. Does that make any sense?
I think it makes a lot of sense. Sometimes there's option overload. Like the only scene that I really liked from The Hurt Locker is when he's standing there looking at all the cereal. And when you come back from, a deployment to an austere location, or where, if you're in the Navy and you're hot bunking with somebody, and your world is literally just very constrained and very contained, there becomes, it's claustrophobic initially, but then at some point, you just really appreciate how much is really stripped away, and you appreciate all the tiny little things that end up happening, and you begin to I honestly think you begin to appreciate people a whole lot more, because when you have options and places to go and things to do, you really can keep you can keep busy and stay distracted. But then when it's just you and those people that are around you, and all the things that you've been doing, like, are kind of getting old, you're no longer on your phone, and you're right there with the people right in front of you. I honestly think you begin to appreciate and enjoy them that much more. So you see what you really have, and you become grateful for it.
I think
And then you
gratitude
become grateful. Oh, gratitude is huge, because you already, like, within a week after you've done on your first deployment or your first, TDY, you're already starting to make a list of, okay, I am never taking this for granted ever again. Like, I am not taking for granted ever taking a shower without having to wear flip-flops. Okay, so that is one thing. I mean, if you really want
the
a great
shower
deployment
situation has
experience at home,
been real there for sure.
Everywhere, like every time you go take a shower, if you're the supporting spouse, just put on a pair of flip-flops, okay? And take all your stuff that you use in the shower and go put it in the far side of your bedroom, and then put it in a bag, and then carry it with you into the shower. And then you have to put it back in a bag and take it all the way back. Don't leave anything in the shower, because
I'm
so
sorry,
you
I'm
can
laughing at you. It's
you
not
can
funny.
really jump into the experience. But seriously, our attitude going into this season of living in a constrained environment will dictate our gratitude. It will dictate our joy from all of it. And there's stuff that we can learn. You were saying, back in March, when I was saying hey, you got to take a deployment mindset to this, because our options have become limited, and many people's worlds have become that much more small, or smaller. And so when your world becomes small, your options become limited, you it can become relaxing once you get over the hurdle. And we've been at this for 3/4 of a year as a nation.
Mhm.
And hopefully by this time, we're actually learning to be grateful for the little things around us, for the little joys that we have.
I'm definitely appreciative. And can I just say that I'm grateful that even though the deployments and the separations that we've gone through as a family have been hard and challenging for different reasons at different seasons, I can say, and I'm just wondering, those of you who are watching that are in the chat, that I just wonder, you know, is it possible to feel that gratitude? I know I feel that gratitude. I'm so glad that you had learned those things because of deployments that you had been through, that helped us go through this season just a little bit better, or at least with
Mhm,
a different perspective. And it
mhm,
almost paid it forward. Like, you know, Matt, you and I have always gone into deployments, especially with mottos or phrases that kind of cast vision for us to help us kind of focus on growth and try to end strong, you know. And one that you introduced during our second deployment was make it
mhm,
count, you know. And so it's interesting because now that we're going
mhm,
through all this with COVID and everything, I can now look back on those deployments and say those they counted for something. We learned something from those that are helping us
mhm.
now go through what we're
Yeah.
going through, with a mindset, and hopefully we can lead out with
Mhm.
family members, external family members, as they're struggling with COVID kind of lockdown and isolation. That's something that we can gift our families with.
Yeah.
So I
Mhm.
think we're getting ahead of
Yeah.
ourselves
So how
just
you
a little
doing?
bit. So I thought what we ought to do is catch everybody up on how we're doing as a couple. Since you guys
Mhm.
heard from us last, um, I can now tell you guys that the last webinar that we did, which was on ripping the Band-Aid, I can now tell you that literally I had to do that webinar on the day that Matt left. And so it just happened to be timed that way.
Yeah.
So if you go back and look at it, if I seem a little bit tired, there's a good reason, good reason. So we are glad to be able to do things authentically. And I'm glad that I didn't weep through the whole thing. But you
Good
know what, like,
timing.
just to be honest, you know, I think there's a little bit of ripping the Band-Aid that kind of is like crossing a really emotional finish line of like, whew, okay, it's
Mhm.
done. And there's almost like it's a simultaneous energy surge and crash at the same time that happens, of like, we cross
Mhm.
that finish line. So Matt, why don't you share with everybody, because you had to go through 2 weeks of quarantine before you even got to the location that you're at now.
Mhm.
And so maybe tell everybody, like, how are you
Yeah.
doing? And then we'll kind of go into our own personal check-in. We'll just do a catch up and then we'll do a check-in.
Um, so what is interesting is, you know, you have that you're having the experience of COVID at home in your home location, in your state, in your city, and you don't really get to see the impact that it's having globally. You hear about it on the news, but you don't get to see how the local population that you're moving in and around is having to react to it as well. So, you know, first getting here and then getting to our quarantine location really was powerful to be able to see that, to be reminded in a visual way that what we're going through is this huge global universal human experience that no one who has lived in remote will remember, you know, 2020 will forget. And just to be able to see that on a global scale was humbling, and also rather kind of inspiring, because the people that we were moving in and amongst were having the same sort of protective response over their population and their culture that we were having back home. And so in a way, it was actually rather inspiring to be able to see that people are coming together in different locations in order to fight against this unseen enemy that we've been struggling against. So that was encouraging. Quarantine initially started incredibly boring, because, you know, if who we are on camera is pretty much who we are in real life. So if we seem rather energetic, that's pretty much what we are anyway. I could say that, you know, if Corie Weathers were an animal, she might probably be a hamster on a wheel. So a cute little hamster, just chugging away on a wheel,
Wait
just
a minute.
going,
What
going,
are you
going, going.
then?
Yeah.
What animal
Huh?
are you? Don't make it too
Probably a
technical.
kangaroo.
Okay.
Probably a kangaroo. Yeah.
That's
Because
very,
kangaroos don't go in one location. I'm just bouncing all around, right? So,
but
and
I thought
fierce.
kangaroos were
Yeah.
vicious.
Well, so, so anyway, so you're not a hamster. You don't look like a hamster, but moving into quarantine and having to slow down was unnerving for a couple of days. And I mean, even slowing down from being on a restriction of movement from before we left. But it was at that point in time you begin to look around and to make connections with the people that you're going to be doing life with. And so our little group that we arrived with and did our quarantine with, we call ourselves ROM, restriction of movement, call ourselves ROM too. And even though we've arrived at our final location, we still grab dinner together and laugh. And they're even talking about grabbing little sweatshirts and having little sayings. So you really start to kind of go crazy together and enjoy that little bit of deployment insanity. So people that have done a deployment understand what deployment insanity is. So I was able to really kind of begin to focus once we were able to use the gym, was able to start focusing on some of my goals and as well as, going to the dining facility and begin to make healthier choices than I was probably making when I was back living at home. And so you begin to, Corie was saying, ripping the Band-Aid, it's like crossing a threshold, crossing a point, and we talked during the first one about being on mission. And so it was actually nice to go ahead and go, okay, all right, day one, get on mission, get on purpose, make it count, because I don't want to, you get to a certain point in age, you don't want to waste time. And you don't want to have just a day where it's just a day and you just made it through the day. You just made it, you got from breakfast all the way through dinner, you go to bed, and what do you got? So don't waste your time, don't waste your day. And at the same time, enjoy when you actually have that downtime to rest and to relax and take care of yourself. So it was a beginning of getting in the rhythm of life on deployment. So yeah, that's what quarantine was like, living in a tent.
So I think I've been thinking about this a lot because, this is the first deployment that we've had since I wrote Sacred Spaces, since I went on that overseas trip that was supposed to really reframe my perspective of spending time apart and deployment and all of that. And so I've been really trying to really pay attention to what my thoughts are and what my experience of this experience is like, and so over the years, I've talked a lot and I've had a lot of family members talk too, service members too, but just couples talking about how, when you're home and you're together, and that reintegration process really is about reintegrating with each other and kind of getting back into that new rhythm together. And it's a whole other topic of, can you get to a place where you can feel like that's the normal, and you're not just waiting for somebody to leave again. And I know that some of you that are listening have really just a rapid tempo of deployments that you go through, and it's really hard to do that. But I know that the scary thing about ripping the Band-Aid, the scary thing about spending time apart is that once you've kind of integrated and you have this one life together, you suddenly start kind of going on these, let me say it this way. The end result of spending so much time apart as a military couple is that a lot of couples talk about feeling like we're living parallel lives. That's the end result of, if you're spending lots of time apart, you get to this place where as a couple, you feel like, you're doing your thing and I'm doing my thing. And let's just keep it that way. Let's just keep it where I'm kind of running the home and in charge of the home and you're doing the work. And, and couples find themselves getting this place where it's like, well, this is not where I want to stay. This doesn't feel like marriage, but this is where the military lifestyle is kind of, it's easier to just keep it. In this parallel lives. But obviously what we want and what reintegration is supposed to be is kind of bringing all of that back together and kind of having one path that you're on together. And so I think the scary part of this initial deployment and kind of getting your battle rhythm is you're starting to have these very different experiences. And Matt, you and I have been talking about this in our phone calls and in our writing to each other, which we'll tell you guys about. But we've already started to kind of have that experience of like having different experiences, you know. And so while he's talking about like eating healthy and striving for those goals and like, you know, trying to use his time wisely, I found myself back at home like really wanting that. And but my world didn't change, the schedule didn't
Right.
change, the kids' needs didn't change. In fact, you know, there was more. And we have teenage kids. We're going to be talking in January on the topic of parenting, but our kids are teenagers now. So relationally, socially, that's asking a whole lot more, you know, and I can't as easily pass the baton to you if you're asleep, right? In the mornings, you've been super helpful. But so it was, I think, harder for me than I wanted it to be. It's not that I didn't think it was going to happen. I kind of went into it going, I'm going to seize the moment, and I'm going to carve out this time for myself and go after these goals like you were. And I found myself not eating horribly necessarily, but just not getting the traction that I saw you getting on yours. And I was automatically starting to feel like, you know, you're getting ahead of me on your goals, and how do I show that I'm going to reach my goals too, and feeling insecure about that. And one of our goals as a couple was that we wanted to stay connected by really working on kind of getting back to writing to each other. So, I mean, it's really easy to, we've even found lately, it's easy for us to jump on a video call and just have a catch up conversation. And that can too easily feel like, okay, we caught up and we've invested in the relationship. And I think what we wanted was, you know, what if we take a more intentional effort to communicate to each other through writing, which kind of slows us down and makes it more intentional. And we'll tell you kind of one of the resources that we're using to do that and why. But I even found that like you had more time and more intentional, thoughtful time than I felt like I had here back at home to really do that well. And I was already starting to feel that insecurity of like, I hope he knows that I'm trying. I hope he knows that I'm trying to reach our goal that we had together, and that that's important to me. And that all these distractions back at home, I hope it's not conveying that the goals that we had aren't important. So I was already just even in the past few weeks starting to feel that like, wow, like he's just taken off and he's doing so well. And he's been so intentional. And I'm like,
Well, don't worry. I've eaten like crap the last 2 days, especially since I got the package of candy that you sent to me.
it was
So
my way of
appreciate that.
sabotaging and bringing you back to my level.
No, but here's the deal. I mean, as you go through life, I remember when we were doing the training with the Franklin Covey team, with John and Jane Covey. You remember them?
Yeah.
And the thing that she came up with, golly, that was back in St. Louis, 2013, maybe, I think. It was, 2013 was a rough year coming right off that second deployment. And her saying, you know what, life moves in seasons. And it was almost like a light went off for you to think, oh my gosh, like I did not know I had the permission to be in a different season of my life. And you've used that, for the last 7 years. And so you have to, and then anybody that's in a different place has to give themselves the permission and the grace to be in a different season. So that's number one, be in a different season, and that's okay. The pace is going to be different. There'll be days where I definitely won't have time to take care of myself because I'll be busy taking care of others in the mission. And that's a great joy. It's just when you have the moments, you take the moment. When you don't, you give yourself the grace and you move forward. Okay. So not having that huge lofty thing. The second thing is you were talking about ripping the Band-Aid and being separate. One thing that Esther Perel, like I started following her on Facebook. So Esther Perel has a book called Mating in Captivity. And one of the big things is that for couples that become so enmeshed where they're constantly living around one another and they're just like so glued into one another, which is kind of how I operated when we first got married, let's be honest. You begin to lose that chemistry because there's not that distance. There's not a space for the electrons to jump across. So distance, if you are intentional with your thought life and your actions, can become a place where you rekindle that chemistry. And so as we've been going through our shared journal online, to be able to consider like what's going, doing that self check-in every day when I first wake up at 6 o'clock of what's going on in me. And I'll flip back through, pictures of us from years ago, and I'll have a thought and then start journaling about it. But for me, it rekindles that chemistry that when I come home, get to celebrate, because it's, we you stay connected with your mind, you stay connected with your heart, and then eventually you're able to physically reconnect and enjoy that the distance is no longer there. So I think you just have to be graceful.
Well, and I'm definitely I've definitely had to kind of figure out what works for me when, right? Like saving
Hmm.
saving writing to you for late at night when the world stops does not work, because my brain is not going to give my best to you, right? And so it's really, and I tried the middle of the day, and I tried, like, after I had really woken up, and things would sabotage that. And so it's taken me a while to kind of find, like, where is my best time, my most intentional time. And that's also
Hmm.
something that Esther Perel talks about, as far as not giving your best to the world, to work, and you've got to
Hmm.
save some of your best for your relationship. And so that's always stood out to
Hmm.
me too. Is like, I don't want to give you my leftovers, right?
Hmm.
I want to give you my best, and everything else comes second. And so I think we probably need to share with everybody the tool that we're using. And
Hmm.
Matt, I'll let you explain what you found that it can do, but it's called the Day One Journal app. And so it's on my phone, and it's also on my laptop, and you've got it on your iPad there. We've logged into the same account. From what
Hmm.
I'm tracking, right? And it gives
Yeah.
us the ability to write journal entries to each other in that same account. So it's almost, so we're just sharing a diary, if you will. But it also
Yeah.
has some great ways we can add pictures, and you had a
Hmm.
video in there too, that
Hmm.
just slayed me one day, in the best way. And so share with everybody as far as why you picked that one and what we intend to do with it.
So when I first got on this deployment, it's been our first one in about 7 or 8 years. So I kind of knew it was time. I was sitting on a bunch of dwell time, and and then I started going back and finding emails from previous deployments. Just looking back and seeing how that was part of what I did in quarantine, was just sit there and flip through emails. Like, hey, we have a treasure trove of our journey and our story, and our what do you call them? The little books, you make them. They're in Michael's. You put
Scrapbook.
pictures in there. Scrapbook. Thanks. It's like, for me, if you're over 40, admit that you play $25,000 pyramid with yourself sometimes, okay? Where it's like it's a thing, and it's a scrapbook. Next, all right. So it's a place where you put cold things, and at the top it's really cold. It's a refrigerator. Next, so I kept thinking, what would it be like if you didn't have to like go through emails and you could actually see? So for me, it was very much like a modern day exchange of letters and letter writing to one another, just kind of a throwback to World War II, of that exchange of mail. And everybody loves mail, but just using a new thing. So you can put in hyperlinks. So I put in I was talking about a Christmas song with Corie, and I found a great version of it on YouTube. It was a piano and a cello. And then when I dropped the link in there, all of a sudden the video is in there. And so you can actually watch the video in there. So it will, if you ask it, it will give you prompts for each day of what to write. And it gives you different ways to begin to, and I found this out in the last week and probably been abusing it too much. It gives you different ways to format the text, to draw your eye to certain parts of the text. Of
It's
course, you can
almost like
cut and
a
paste.
written or visual would be written.
So what? You just went,
It's almost the template that it gives you, the template that it gives you almost makes it visually like a blog, where it
right,
highlights
right.
certain text. And so it's not just like an email.
Right. And so what the cool thing is for me is that at the end of all this, when we finally get back together, I can hit send and print, and it will actually create a book. And so we will have a book of our thoughts from this deployment. And so what it is, it's an opportunity every day for me to just kind of journal of what yesterday was like, how I felt and what I thought about it, and then what I'm about to go encounter during this day, or just little poignant moments. And so one of the key things that we learned early on in our marriage, especially from a counselor, is that good marriages are made up of positive shared experiences. And if you talk about Gottman would say for every negative one experience, you need to have 5 positive experiences. And one of the things I was reminded of by looking back into our old emails was that we did have some negative experiences where we would argue on the phone, and then in the email we're like, hey, I'm sorry for, being a butthole on the phone. I had X, Y, and Z going on. And I didn't remember those negative things, but there were several of the positive emails. I was like, I remember reading this. I remember seeing this. And so it was both a look what we survived through when we were apart initially, but it was also a look who we are now in light of all that. And, you and I have had this thought process of that we don't enact as much as we probably should. We're like, what would the 90-year-old versions of ourselves say to us when we're in the middle of an argument? And, sometimes it makes us just laugh. We're like, because we're idiots. Because you don't want to waste that day. You don't want to waste the time, especially when days are taken away from you, and you don't have that physical contact to hold hands and open doors and then, snuggle when you go to bed. And so when you don't have those opportunities, you don't want to waste it. And so just remembering as much as possible the positive moments and documenting those so that you can go back and look at what you've survived and be encouraged about it. So that's what we've been doing. And, we enter into the journal and you can go in, you can put an entry in there, you can come back and revisit it. It will actually do audio dictation. So if you're sitting there with a little baby and you just want to do audio dictation while you're letting that little baby go to sleep, babies love hearing parent voices. They go to sleep because it calms and soothes them. So you can actually dictate what's going on in your world if you wanted to. So, yeah.
And there's also, for those of you who are in the Navy, let's say, or you've got a spouse that's literally going off the grid and they're not able to do a daily journal, right? This is something that once they come back into like having Wi-Fi or get back into port or something like that, that it will populate everything that you've been writing. And I know that might seem like that's overwhelming to a service member, but I know Matt has shared with me, like he wants to know what's going on so he can feel like he's involved. And I know when I was overseas and doing that very short trip compared to a deployment, when you would email me, and because we were on that different time zone, and you would email me and tell me what was happening with the boys, I was like, I remember thinking to myself, I'm so glad that you wrote me all of that. Number one, because I feel like I'm not missing something, and it takes a little bit of that guilt away because I'm aware of what's happening. But I also appreciated the fact that I could come back to that email and read it again in case I missed anything. I could really intentionally at a different time come back and read through it again. And so I was really thankful for those details. And so I know it might seem overwhelming to write a journal every day or every other day, and your spouse suddenly get like 20 of those at once. But again, I think it's about like recording your story as a couple. And I don't know, you can answer this, Matt, but for me, I would come back to that situation feeling like I was missed and I was thought of, and that's still something worth like reading through, as I would have the time to read through it, even if I wasn't able to contribute. And I know it can feel difficult. And it doesn't mean, I guess, that service member who's off the grid can't write, and then upload those when they do get back to port. And so it does kind of all sync eventually,
Yeah. Here's what I think, and I would equate it to this. Just, if you don't think it matters to document what you're going through on a day-to-day basis, I'll mention 2 aspects. One, just go over to your bookshelf, find your favorite book, and then randomly rip pages out. And then try and make sense of the story when there are huge pieces of that picture that are missing. So what I wish I would have done is I wish that I would have journaled a whole lot more than I have during the course of our marriage and our journey, just so I could be able to go, okay, here's how I got to here, both for myself and also for the boys. We live so much of our life through our own eyes and our own experience. You begin to forget, oh yeah, like the kids never knew that I used to teach rock climbing or that I used to do pottery. And you're like, hey, do you know that I almost went to art school? And the kids are like, what?
Yeah.
You're artistic? Oh yeah, I just totally forgot about that. That was like used to be a thing before being an adult happened. So,
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
oh, sorry. Go ahead and finish.
So there's that, but then I forgot the second thing.
That was
It
my
was
fault.
really important. No, it's okay. Believe me. As I was talking, I was like, I said two things. The second thing was a really good thing, but I
You'll
forgot.
get back to it. Well,
I'll
I do want to address the couple of questions that are in the chat that apply to
Yeah.
this whole journal thing, because I can definitely answer those. Because Brittany was asking about, what about journaling the tough moments? And this happened to me very early on into our journaling. She says, I feel guilty sharing when I'm having a tough time. She feels guilty sharing it with her husband because I don't want it to negatively impact his mindset. And I felt that one day because we had gotten this really good start to this whole journaling thing and how we missed each other and loved
Mhm,
each other. And here's what we're doing, how it's going well. And then I hit
mhm,
like a really tough day. And I was like, I have nothing good to say. Like I really am having a tough time keeping that, I call it, we tend to like have our own personal battles on the inside. And I really do believe in marriage. There are great days for us to fight that battle on our own. And we should do the strength
mhm,
training in our lives to be able to fight those
mhm,
internal battles. But I really do believe that in marriage, sometimes we have to take those battles to our spouse and that they're there to help us with those battles. And so, Brittany, to answer your question, I just was honest because I really thought that, if we're going to document what this experience was like, and I imagined, if my boys ever read this someday when we're long gone, I don't want them to read the story of our marriage as if we never had issues or we never had a bad
mhm,
day. Or and so I did it appropriately, and I just kind of shared from my heart, like, this is a tough day, and I'm really struggling. I'm on the struggle bus today. And I even said in the journal entry that day, I was like, I said the same thing you said, Brittany. I'm so sorry because I know that I want this to be like a good thing every day, but and I don't even remember now what the day was. But I just was really having a hard time. I think actually it had to do with all of the COVID stuff because we have had to make the conservative decision to bring our boys back home. We have a high risk son. And so they're home and not in school. And I'm watching the whole world, not the whole world, but a lot of people just enjoy their freedom. And so I was just really struggling that day and being honest about like the tough decision that we've had to make, and during a deployment too. And I love the fact that Matt wrote back encouragement on that and the permission to not feel like I had to hide that, and that doesn't, it actually made him feel more connected to what was going on in me and his ability to invest as if he was right here with me and encourage me like he would any other day. And I also, before you respond to that, Matt, I also want to speak to what I believe another spouse was mentioning, feeling like you have nothing to write about. And I also have had that experience because while he's, talking about, new food that he's trying or conversations with interesting people that he's deployed with right now, I also feel like our world in this house is the same, schedule every day. And I was running out of things to say in a way. And so I appreciated the prompts that the journal has, and being
mhm,
able to just, um, I think for me, if I would answer that question, I really just had to go, you know what, I do have something to say if I slow myself down long enough to not think about necessarily my schedule and what happened in the day. It's kind of like what Matt said about going back to those old pictures, going back to those old emails and letting things rekindle within you, and really kind of slowing myself down long enough to go, you know what, I'm just gonna, it's almost like, I don't want to use the word meditate because that freaks people out sometimes, but it's really
mhm,
just thoughtfully thinking about your relationship, thinking about him. I know in the journal entry that I did this morning,
mhm,
I did remember, how much he's that artist at heart, and so I kind of spoke to that and really just told him how thankful I was that he is like that, for him to enjoy the art of being in a different country, and not feeling guilty about that, to have whatever experiences he needs to have over there, and seeing the beauty in that. And so I think it really comes down to getting outside of thinking that this is just an update of what we did each day, and really slowing down long enough
right,
to
right.
tend to the relationship and tend to the person.
Yeah. So it becomes an exercise in thoughtful intentionality, to be able to sit and think and consider. We live in a world where most of our interactions are quick paced. We've moved away from even like long drawn out descriptive emails to quick texts. Even when we apologize to people, hey, I'm sorry, hey, forgive me, I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. All right, let's move on. Let's go, let's go, let's go. And so for me, the journaling has actually slowed me down and begin to incrementally think about the things about you that I'm incredibly grateful for, the things that the ways that I'm watching you grow, by me not being there, by you having to carry all this. And it reminds me of so three things that I was thinking when you were talking. Number one, adversity grows people. Mm-hmm. Adversity grows people. So as much as I may want to make your life easy, I know that if you tackle the challenges of the day, you're going to be a better person. And I want that not just for us and our marriage and our family, but I definitely want that for you. And you deserve to be that kind of person. So while I may want to help solve your problems, and there's some that I can order the stocking stuffers on Amazon and have those sent home. So I can do those little, ankle biters. But then just getting through, the grinding it out day after day after day, you're going to have to do that. And I remember who you were after the first deployment. Took some getting used to and getting adjusted, but I was actually very grateful that I no longer had to make all decisions, or you didn't have to run things by me. And I was like, great, I have decision fatigue from work. The fact that you've got things up and going, it feels like I can just kind of jump back on the train and we keep going. So adversity grows people. The second thing is feeling powerless can remind us to be grateful of those things that we do have power and influence over. And then we can then become creative. So if there are things in your world that I totally can't impact, I can't, make breakfast for the boys. But if I have an opportunity to order food and have it sent to you and surprise you, then I can do that. You probably don't want me to surprise you with dinner when you've made dinner. But if it's just overstocking your house with groceries, I can do that. And so you become creative for the things that you can impact and you can influence that you forget over time. And the last thing is great marriages aren't made by only great times. Mm-hmm. And too many people want to say that the mark of a truly great marriage is that there's no difficulty, there's no argument, and there's no opportunities for growth. That is just everybody's happy and smiling. Those marriages don't exist. They actually don't even exist in romantic comedies. They don't exist anywhere. So when you're having that difficulty, when you personally are having that difficulty, and I have to be on the struggle bus with not being able to impact that, or vice versa, if I'm having a difficult time and you just want to come alongside and comfort me and can't do that from far away, you have to just kind of turn me over to let me grow through that adversity. So three things. Adversity grows people. So embrace it. Okay. If you want to become better, you have to accept struggle. That's just a fact of life. Feeling powerless can remind you to be grateful, but it can also trigger creativity in your marriage. And last, great marriages, they aren't made only by great times. So when those difficult times come forward, know that that's only for a season. It may be for a few hours, it may be for a few days, or even a week or a month, but that season will pass. And on the other side, you're going to be a much better person because of it. So don't be afraid to share the difficulty you're struggling with, because who knows, you may be the person that goes back and reads it to know what you were able to gut out, to grind through, and to survive in that moment, because I can guarantee it's not going to be your last tough moment.
For sure. For sure. And so, and honestly, you kind of had a couple of bumps there too. And I remember you saying I'm sorry, I don't mean to bring this on you. And it was the same reaction. It was no, I want to know what you're going through and how I can be that person for you. Because I honestly, sharing those struggles is part of the connection. If all he ever hears from me is I'm doing great, then he feels like he's not needed and it doesn't matter that he's gone.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Now the difference is if I was day after day making him feel powerless and guilty, for his job, and that him being taken away, I think that becomes unproductive. And that's what a lot of service
Right.
members shared with me when I went overseas was, I want to know what's going on, but if there are things that are going to make me feel powerless, like
Mhm.
our first deployment, I had a car wreck. Like that really freaked Matt out. There was nothing he could do. And you know what? Mental note: if that happens, the first thing you do, you should not send a picture of the car. Like that was not helpful to
Sure,
him.
sure, sure. Yeah,
But
not good.
that's what a lot of service members said is like, if it's something that really makes them feel powerless, that's really a tough situation to put them in. So if it's something that I can I know he can't do. It's good for me to be able to do what I can on my own, call in support, call in help. I shared in the last webinar, the first night, I didn't even get through the first day of deployment without getting so ill that I had to call in support to pick up our son from work. And that was not something he could help me with. There was nothing Matt could do from where he was, but me being able to say, I called for help. Somebody's going to take care of that situation. Everybody's fine, but I want you to know what's going on. Like, I
Yeah.
think that's what a lot of service members said. Like, if you can let us know that you're handling it so that we're not like freaking out from a distance and there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we want to walk you guys through a tool of how you guys can stay connected, and we're not going to model it. We're actually going to do it for each other here. It's called the 5-minute check-in. Where I developed it over the years. Matt and I actually kind of worked on it together over the years because we had so many couples that are just like passing like ships in the night and like not really getting a good way to check in with each other. And I think I'm going to just kind of stereotype here. A lot of men, a lot of service members that are men really get intimidated when the counselor is asking them to communicate more and share feelings and stuff. And a lot of times we think it needs to be this really in-depth, emotionally exhausting conversation. And I know for some women out there, that's what you would love to have. But that can be hard to do in a marriage, especially when you're apart. And so over time, I created what's called the 5-minute check-in because I found that most of the time misunderstandings and assumptions come from when we are not communicating what's going on in the other person's world. And so then we just start guessing as a couple because nobody's communicating anything. And so this literally takes 5 minutes. I mean, sure, if you want to take more than that and that's your relationship, great. Like Matt and I can have a 3-hour conversation, no problem. But like for a lot of couples, that's intimidating. And so I'm going to screen share what this looks like. And Matt, you and I are going to go through it together and you've got this in your handout. If you got it in your email before the event. And so it's there in your worksheets for you to follow along, but I'm also going to screen share what this looks like. And really this is, it also applies to what we're going to be talking about also today is like, okay, what about the holidays? Like, what are we going to do with connecting and trying to do the holiday thing? So stick with us because I also wanted to give you a tool that you can apply even if you're apart and even if it's just over the phone and you have a few minutes, but you don't have time for long, lengthy conversations like what I put my husband through. So, okay.
Put me through. I'm the extrovert.
I know, but sometimes I can like just dump information at you as a way of getting it out of my head. Okay, so this is called literally the 5-minute check-in, and there's 4 questions. Can you see that, Matt?
Yep.
Are you able? Okay. It's literally 4 questions. And the whole goal of the 4 questions is for you to answer them in 1 to 2 sentences. Okay. It's not more complicated than that. And, a lot of people, if you've ever gone through a marriage retreat, maybe your chaplain's taken you through a marriage retreat, maybe you've heard of the speaker listener technique where you reflect back and you say word for word what you heard that person say. We push that aside on this one. Like this is literally, each person can go through all 4 questions and then you swap. And you should be able to get in sync with each other in these 4 questions. So Matt, do you want me to go first or do you want to try it first?
You can go first.
Okay. So the number 1 question is, and this is what I would love for you guys to do in the chat box. And so I want you guys to participate. And I know this is a vulnerable thing to ask you guys to do. I can't see the chat. Matt can probably see it. But
No,
I want you guys, you can or you can't see it.
No, I don't have it on.
Okay, so I'll come back to the chat here in just a minute, but I want you guys to do this with me if you're willing to be vulnerable and do it with me, because you'll learn a lot about yourself when you give yourself a chance to answer these questions. And I think you're also going to find that those of you who are participating today, that you all probably are having similar thoughts and feelings, and it's nice to have that validated. So, first question is, what are you physically feeling? Literally, what's happening in your body? Think about the times you've woken up and had a really rough night of sleep and you just are stomping down the stairs, or maybe you shut the refrigerator door just a little too loudly, but your spouse doesn't know that you had a rough night of sleep, right? Or if you come in and you just stomp through the door and you've had a rough day at work, you know, your spouse doesn't know that that has something to do with what happened at work. And we can tend to make assumptions in our marriage to go, it must be me, or is he angry with me, or is she upset, you know, and by just saying physically what's going on, it can clear a lot of that up. So for me, physically, I'm tired. I haven't been getting great sleep since you left. I think that's normal for me when you leave. Like, I tend to go to bed later. I tend to have a hard time falling asleep. I hear a lot of spouses say that, like, you know, when you're here, like, we could go to bed at 9:30 and I can fall asleep. And that's always been important to us. We tend to go to bed at the same time. But now that you're gone, like, not only am I having a hard time falling asleep, but I'm staying up later than I want to. It takes me a lot longer to wind down from the day. And so I think I'm tired. And that's my goal next week, is to try to get back to a better schedule on that. Two, what are your thoughts? So this is, now 2 and 3 tend to get mixed up. A lot of people confuse thoughts and emotions, and that's why they're two separate questions. And I can't see your chat, so I'm gonna have to go back and look at it here in just a minute. But I'd like to know, if you guys are willing to answer it in the chat, is anxiety and worrying a thought or a feeling? So put that in the chat if you think anxiety is a thought or a feeling. So my thoughts lately, whether it's been this week or just today, I'm really glad that it's Friday. I'm really, I've been thinking about how I want to just kind of circle the wagons for this weekend and just really focus on the boys. It's been a lot of, like, getting ready for Christmas has been a lot on my plate. Like, I was trying to get packages out to you and packages out to families, since we're not going to see them. And so I've had too many thoughts. Matt, what was it you used to say all the time? Like, too many minds happening in my
No,
head.
from the Last Samurai, I think,
Yeah.
with Tom Cruise, where he's trying to focus on whatever he's doing, and the guy says, "Too many mind." He's like, "You're talking about all the things that you're being overly mindful of."
Yeah.
So, too many mind.
And that's where my brain has been. Like, I feel like I turn one way and I have to go down a black hole of thought. And then I get sucked into another black hole with work of thought. And then my kids need me for something. And so then I have to really concentrate on that. And so my mind has just been so full. I think I'm overwhelmed on that. Emotions. I think today I'm a little bit on the struggle bus. Like, I think I'm hearing our family members are struggling with the fact that we're not coming home for Christmas. That's hard to hear. And I saw, you know, some of you guys put in the chat thread, how do you convey to family members that Christmas is just not going to be what it normally is, and helping them even understand what the holidays need to be for you as a military family is hard. And so I'm feeling all the emotions of, I feel like everybody around me and the kids. And so I think emotionally I'm overwhelmed too, of just hearing the weight of the holidays. And I can't make it better. Like, I can't make it better for family members. I can't make it better for the kids, other than like trying to make it feel like Christmas, which is also taking a lot of energy. And so number 4 is, what do you need? And this is super important, guys, that you express it, that we don't forget this one, because we tend to do 2 and 3 only when we communicate with our spouse, I think, in marriage. But we fail to tell what we're physically feeling and how that impacts us. And we always forget, like, what do you need? And sometimes I think we're afraid to say what we need, as if that's going to be too much for somebody to hear. And so sometimes expressing what you need is what you can only do for yourself. And sometimes it's actually being able to say, I need your help. Like, and here's how you can help me. And or here's an opportunity for you to help me. And so I think what I need, I think for myself, I think later today, I'm literally going to turn off all the screens except for maybe the TV. And I'm gonna finish, some chores around the house and just kind of turn on some Christmas music. And I think I need to turn off the world a little bit, is what I need. And I think that, I think from you, Matt, what I need is just kind of like that one-on-one check-in after the webinar. I'm looking forward to just talking with you, because it's the kind of a good chance for us to say goodnight before you go to sleep. I'm really looking forward to just connecting with you just one-on-one, and that will be really good for my soul to just kind of like, whew, there's been a lot happening, and I'm looking forward to just connecting with you that way, because like you said before, you've just done some great things. You've helped with stocking stuffers, and like there's little things like that you've really taken off my lists, and because I have more than one list. And that's been really helpful. And so in a lot of ways, you really did help with some things that I needed earlier this week. And so I think that's something that you can do for me that I'm looking forward to. So here's where we switch. And by the way, the bottom of this says they can't win if they don't know. Like, by expressing what you need, he knows what's going on within me, and there's things he can do, and there's things that he can't do. And the things that he can't help me with are things that he can encourage me on, but at least he knows. And I'm giving him those opportunities to get it right, by helping out where he can. And everybody wants to win in marriage. I think we're all trying to do the best we can. And that's the goal of this, is to give everybody an opportunity to win. So that was really long because I was trying to coach you through it too. But Matt, I'm going to give you a chance to go through the 4. I mean, you can react if you want to, but you can also just jump in.
All right. So what am I physically feeling? I'm feeling old because as I'm trying to look at the screen, I need my glasses now. I've been standing all day, so my legs are tired. I'm using a standing desk instead of sitting, so which is good for me, but at the same time, my legs are tired, so I'm aware of that right now. So if I'm like shifting my stance, it's because my heels are tired, but I'm nonetheless undaunted. What are my thoughts? That I love working with you. This is like one of my most favorite thing in the world, and that even if nobody had tuned in and this was just us, that I'd be having a blast right now. So that's my thought. So what are my emotions about that? Gratitude. Anybody who knows our story, if you know what the early years were like, and we've been honest with that on your podcast, would know that they were not easy, and that and they're not always easy days. We have better days now, more than not. But I'm really grateful that we have been allowed to serve this community in this way, just by being open and honest. So I'm feeling a lot of gratitude for that. And what do I need? I feel like I'm pretty full this season. And so I need to have good opportunities where I can pour into you and keep encouraging you until you are no longer on the struggle bus, and until you get that much needed rest that's coming in a couple of weeks. So that's what I need. I also need to not watch This Is Us on this deployment,
guys,
because
I asked him to watch this show forever, and then he waited to watch it on deployment.
Because damn, sorry, I should not have cussed. I apologize, but still, it is good. But I mean, if it doesn't make you miss your family, then you have no heart. So I'm going to keep watching it because it's awesome. At the end of every episode, I'm like, I need to call the boys. So yeah, so that's where I'm at.
Everybody
right now.
should watch it on deployment. I don't know.
Yep.
Okay,
so I don't know what everybody has shared in the chat, but I will say this. Thank you for your courage and your bravery to be honest with where you're at. If you can't describe where you're at and what you need, your spouse can't read your mind, but you're not giving them the opportunity to get a win and to be able to provide influence into your life and that encouragement that draws the two of you together. So be open, be honest, own your feelings, and don't blame your feelings on anybody else because they're your feelings, but be able to describe how what others do in specific situations influences you to feel the way you do. So yeah.
Well, and I think that I want to, and I'm looking at the chats now, and I'm so thankful you guys are doing this along with us. It's fantastic. And I hope that you're like, just giving yourself a chance to like pay attention to yourself for a second, is nice. We underestimate how powerful something like this can be. Um, and so I just want to acknowledge something out loud that that I'm going through right now that I think a lot of other people would feel. Because if you're watching us go through that check-in like that, you know, there's a little piece of me that when he started talking, I was like, he's doing great. Like, I'm not doing great. I mean, I'm not doing terrible, right? But I mean, sometimes you do a check-in like that, and it is hard to hear, like, you know, to be honest and say, I'm struggling a little bit. And then for him to say, you know, I'm feeling really full right now. And I just want to acknowledge that that should not be discouraging for you, that
Mhm.
marriages ebb and flow. And
Mhm.
now I know Matt, obviously. And so he really is genuinely in that place right now. And that doesn't mean he's not going to be somewhere different next month or next week or
Mhm.
something like that. That's just where he's at today. But I will say, I don't regret sharing the fact that I was
Mhm.
struggling, because in hearing him talk about that gratitude, his place of gratitude, I don't think I need him to match my struggle. In fact, him just
No.
sharing openly the fact that he's grateful and has that gratitude, and him even talking about how much we do love doing these things together. You know, I
Mhm.
was thinking as he was saying that we have that kind of work and intellectual intimacy that happens between the two of us. When we get to encourage you guys, it automatically raised my level of gratitude in hearing that. And so I'm thankful that he brought that up,
Mhm.
because I'm like, you know what, even if I'm struggling, I am blessed that we get to do this together, and I get to see you on camera when there's a lot of people that are hashtag what?
You gotta hashtag blessed.
Hashtag blessed.
You can't say blessed without a hashtag. You gotta hashtag. That's what all the kids are doing. All the kids are
All
doing
the
that. So
hashtag.
yeah,
Oh man.
all the kids.
Others whole other thing. So I hope that the check-in is helpful for you guys. It's in your worksheets. I highly encourage you to pair it with what's called the feelings wheel. You can literally get the feelings wheel
Mhm.
at feelingswheel.com. It's not something that I created. I created the check-in, but the feelings wheel will really help with you. Do this with your kids. My boys were bickering the other day, and there was just something not going well with them, and I pulled out the check-in because I was like, what is going on? So this is really great to do with kids, just kind of figure out, get in sync, and know what's on the inside. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to raise my hand. Normally, this would be the point where if we were standing next to one another, I would nudge you because I got something I want to say. But also with this check-in and with the feelings wheel, it's important. And I use this as I was at the dinner table and we were talking about something important yesterday, me and a few of the other officers. And I asked the question, I was like, so what makes you feel heard? And then the officer I was talking to just kind of talked a little bit about something. I was like, no, what makes you feel heard? When do you feel heard? And they kind of talked about, this is what I think, how people, and I was like, no, like, I'm interested in you. What makes you feel heard? And then when I slowed it down, that's when he kind of got thoughtful of like, I hadn't really thought about that. So when you're going through these check-ins and you're talking with one another, help the other person, help articulate for the other person, help them understand, um, and know from yourself, within yourself, when do you feel heard and when do you feel seen? Because it's one thing to be able to put information out there, and it's a whole nother thing to complete the process when you get that validation that you have been heard and you have been seen. But you have to tell somebody and go, when you do this, that's when I feel heard. And that can be definitely with reflective listening, or it can be, just the nonverbal facial expressions, So what we're trying to do in these check-ins is to increase our communication. The communications that means towards sharing our internal world with one another because we want to do life, which is why it is so important that you share when you're having a down day. So the other person can then be your person at that time. And then it's that season will change and you will be their person. That's how you grow together.
Mhm. So good. And guys, I just want to acknowledge that I do, Melissa, the app is Day One app, Day One Journal. And I do want to just say, I do see the question in the Q&A box that I'm going to definitely get to towards the end of our time together. And we are going to do some question and answer here in a little bit. There's been some great questions about how to stay connected during the holidays. So we will get to those soon. So if you have those, it's a good time for you to put them in so that we can make sure we have all those questions before we get to the end. But I think it's actually a good time, Matt, for us to kind of transition to the holidays and how do we stay connected. And the check-in is a really, really good way, especially if you're apart. I think this is also really powerful to do with family members. It's not just a marriage tool. It's a communication tool. It's a connection tool to do with family members. There's a lot of ways to stay connected during the holidays, but Matt, when we were talking about this, just kind of dreaming up, what do we talk about and what's the difficulty of being apart during the holidays like this? It isn't just the fact that we're apart. During the holidays when there's so much steeped in tradition and, and I was even talking to your mom this morning and checking in with her today. And, and I was just like, our world is even not what you and I grew up with, in general right now. And the holidays are definitely, they're really formed, and traditions are formed usually by, what you did growing up and the nostalgia of what you grew up with. And so you had asked me when we were talking about this, like, well, if the holidays are hard and we're trying to make the holidays feel like the holidays, we have to ask the question, what do the holidays feel like to you? Right? Like, or what makes the holiday a holiday? Right. And so I'd like you guys to put in the chat, like, tell us as we're talking, like, what makes the holiday like feel like the holidays. So Matt, I know you have something to say, so go for it while I'm putting that in.
Can I mention Thanksgiving?
Yes, I was going to, so go for it.
Okay, fantastic. So
it's terrible.
Thanksgiving, well, I was in quarantine. So I was on like a kind of a do not move anywhere order. So we're just going to shuttle you food and you stay there, which is glorious. So, but then I went to check in and I check in with Corie and I don't know if I like called first or something, but I got
called
on the video.
I could not hide it.
Yeah, you were on the video. We were doing a video chat and
it was like, how are you? And I was like,
well, but you weren't even like in sweats. You weren't even like, you had like gotten dressed up. You're like, we're going to do this. And you were like, you went straight happy homemaker with the apron. And I'm like, how you doing? And you're like, and I was like, oh no, like, oh, this is going to go bad. And so you were like, the boys, and they were making fun of the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. And then I told them to stop, and I never learned how to read. So it's all true. So, but
they were fighting and it's crazy.
Yeah, which in all honesty was probably how they were getting through the holidays without me being there. It's the first time that I've been away for, a deployment that they actually remember. And so I'm sure they woke up both kind of like, angry, frustrated, you name it. And, we've talked before about men and boys, and we grow up with 4 crayons, right? We grow up with mad, sad, glad, and anxious. Well, sad and anxious become mad. And so they're experiencing anxiety, they're experiencing sadness, and so it just becomes madness. And so, young men growing up, they oftentimes they bristle up, they try and posture to the world around them, and it's based out of a sense of I'm feeling a vulnerable feeling, I don't know what to do with it. And so when they were doing that, what I needed to do was I needed to help them understand what the holidays mean to you. And you've grown up in a very large family, and I told them, get the phone and y'all go upstairs to the playroom now. Like, leave your mother alone, and we're going to have a talking. So I was able to do this. But I'll say what I was able to do to hopefully empower all of you listening in there out in Radio Land. Sorry, that was old. That was like old man
That was,
joke right there,
that
wasn't it?
was like
Radio
3
land.
generations old.
Oh, that's so bad. Oh, cringe. So that's another thing the kids say is cringe. So I got up there and I was like, hey, this is where your mom's at. Like, this is what she grew up celebrating holidays. And I was able to describe it. And I was like, you guys don't remember this because these traditions had passed. But these traditions were based um, around two people, your grand and grandma and your grandparents, that were the most formative people for you growing up and your stability in that. And because of those holiday traditions, you need the holidays to be a certain something. And I understand that. I respect that. They had no idea that, that they needed to wear, oven mitts and kid gloves, and then to be all in on trying to make it whatever it couldn't be. And even if I was there, it still would be us away from family. And even if we were with part of your family, we still wouldn't be in that big, huge family gathering that you used to have, with all that joy and that belonging and that sense of community, which is what everybody's struggling with right now. So the first thing is, when we talk about the holidays, we're not just saying, what are your expectations? We're like, what was imprinted on you that is making it difficult for you to go through the holidays away from people right now? We all have these messages that we want to live out, and we want to like solidify and kind of reaffirm in the holidays of who we are as family members and our closeness. And our inability to gather right now has really put a huge damper on that. So we've got to be able to communicate. We have to know within ourselves, like, what does this mean to me? Like, what are the traditions? Why are they meaningful to me? And then why am I disappointed? And to be able to articulate that for other people. But then also, I think it gives us a great opportunity to look and see, are there any traditions that we have had going on that are empty traditions? So that when we are able to get back with people and we are able to celebrate again, we can be intentional and go, you know what? I don't think I want to sit around and watch football all day. I think I want to go have Christmas in a cabin, and to watch people go, okay, that sounds good, because now we can reinvent things. So there's possibility.
Well, and
That's
that
all I had.
that imprinting question is so important. It's so important for me too. And it's something that I've been really thinking and trying to focus on with all of the just trying to like figure out what to do with the holidays for us here back at home, is really, asking what's the most important thing and what am I trying to do? And I mean, we laugh now, but like during the first deployment for us was one of the funnier traditions. It was around Easter, of me trying to force Easter to make it feel like the Easter that I knew growing up. And my kids were tiny, and it was in a deployment, and it was a cold, wet day in Colorado. And I mean, I even managed to get the kids like screaming to church before we arrived, and church had changed their schedule for Easter Sunday. And it just was so bad. But it was the first, like, that was one of the first marking moments for me as a military spouse to go, what was I trying to do? Like, what was I trying to make this? And I'm also trying to like kind of enforce something on my kids that's not their world. That was my world growing up. And as military kids, this is a different world for them. And now even during COVID, this is a different world and a different experience for our kids too. And so it really is, all of this is making us rewrite like traditions in a way, and deciding, like you're saying, like, what is the most important thing, right? And this was, part of my conversation with even your mom this morning, and trying to like, and I've had it with my parents too, of just asking ourselves like, okay, yes, we can't be together for Christmas, but what makes Christmas Christmas anyways, and what do we have? We do have the ability to have video calls. And so we need to do that more often. And I know one of the things that the boys and I are doing we're actually making cookies and mailing them, because it's at least something that we touched. It's a tangible thing that's passing, something that we touched or made to somebody else. And one of the things that we had created a new tradition for our family, just as a military family, because we moved so often. It was like you couldn't go to the same place every year and do, or visit family, the same homes every year for the holidays. And so over time, we created the tradition of at some point during the Christmas season, getting in our pajamas and getting hot chocolate. And the one kid that doesn't like hot chocolate, who doesn't like hot chocolate? Our kid doesn't, but we give him cider and we all get in our pajamas and we go drive around to the new town and look for Christmas lights. Like, which neighborhood can we find that has the most Christmas lights? One year we got with some people to go look at Christmas lights, and they did not have the same tradition idea that we had in mind. It was a literally get out of your car and walk through looking Christmas lights. So we were the one family in slippers and pajamas walking through.
Oh my gosh.
Lights scenario, but now it's a funny memory. But that's what the boys and I are going to do tonight.
So painful.
We're going to do that tonight. We found a place here around Fort Hood where you can drive through and look at Christmas lights. And it's not in the same familiar town that we did it last year, but it is, it's what we do. And what's great about that is the boys now, they don't care where we're going to go look at lights. They may not even care if we even get to see a whole lot of lights. For them, it's this like hot chocolate pajamas in the car thing, listening to Christmas music thing, and that's the tradition, And so being able to be creative with that and just decide,
Said, and the Waffle House.
And the Waffle House, which I've got to figure out if we can even do that this year. That we do Christmas Eve, the Weathers family, we do Christmas Eve at Waffle House every year. And so I don't know if I can get Waffle House to go on Christmas Eve, but we're going to have to.
I don't even know if you should eat it there, but.
No, but I am going to share our tradition on Christmas Eve is we go to Waffle House and we leave a large tip for our server, and our kids are part of it. They get to be a part of giving to somebody on Christmas Eve. And so perhaps, we adjust our tradition this year and we give back to somebody somehow in a different way that still is that same tradition. And we bring Matt in on it, and we get to decide as a family, like, what are we going to do and where are we going to go and how do we give back in that way? And so I think, Matt, I want to pass it to you. We're going to answer questions here in just a second, because I don't want to not do that.
Sure.
But I want to ask you, that's stuff we can do here at the house. And so what is Christmas and what does the holidays mean to you? What's been imprinted on you? Because you're without. And it makes me sad back at home to be like, okay, you're just without, and it's not going to feel like Christmas at all. But maybe being in the military has shifted that for you and it means something different. And maybe if I didn't know that, I would totally miss the mark and not be able to serve you during the holidays.
The most comforting thing about being deployed, especially in my position, is having a purpose and a mission. Anything you go through difficulty wise, if you don't have like a purpose for why you're going through something difficult, then it's just wasted time. So I really need you to see if you can send me that Santa Claus outfit, like overnight it or something, and how we can get it here. Cause I'm already like, one of the plans I have is to, like, if I can get that like Santa Claus top and be like in uniform with a Santa Claus top and my calf hat, then then I'm just going to go get all the stuff that they could normally get in the dining facility, all the stuff that's pre-wrapped. And then I'm just gonna walk around and give it to people. So I'd be like, here's your chocolate milk and here's your M&Ms, because then it's a little joke.
Hey, Laura, if you're listening, maybe the USO can somehow in Europe get a Santa suit to Matt. If y'all can work that out, that would be awesome.
Oh, I get a Santa suit, and we would also like a screening of Wonder Woman. So
Laura says she's going to work on it.
Being able to do that. Oh yeah. So yeah. And I'll take the pictures and we will just have an absolute blasty blast. Because this is my family this year. These are the people that I get to love. And I don't want any of them. I'm blessed, and I'm perfectly blessed. I don't have any needs except to see joy and happiness on other people's face. So to be able to go around and cut up and to laugh about it, where I'm at is pretty cold, so there's a good chance it could be a white Christmas, and I'm hoping and praying about that. But it's I'm looking forward to it, because these are the people that I've committed my life to serving. And so just to be here, that's just another tradition of living out that calling for who I am as a person. But yeah, I mean, we get to have family. You get to wake up and be like, hey, it's Christmas and we're deployed and we're not near our family. But guess what? We're the family we got.
Mhm.
And so when we're the when it's the family you got, you give it all. And you know,
Is
you
there
can't get together
anything
and like have rowdy singing. So
like other than like FaceTiming, or I mean, is there anything that we can do, as a family here, to be mindful of you for Christmas, for the holidays?
enjoy who you have in your house. Not just for you, but for everybody that's back there at home. I mean, enjoy the ability to not have to wear a mask around the people that are in your home. The most time, when I leave this office, I'm wearing a mask for most of the time that I'm out there around people. So to be able to see a person's whole face is fascinating. But you don't know what to be grateful. So I say that to you, but I also say that to other people. Of those, if you're there with, you've got kids or you've got a family or a trusted group of people that you can take your mask off with, then enjoy that. The thing that brings my heart gladness is to know that you guys are enjoying life. So yeah, I don't have, where I'm at, I don't have any wants and needs. I'm pretty well taken care of. So yeah, thanks though.
Well,
I
and
appreciate it.
we've
I already
definitely,
have Brave the Frog.
we sent you for Brave the Frog, who's been on every deployment with you and also went with me overseas too. That's why he's looking a little rough.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. He's brave
we've
but
sent some
tired.
things for you for Christmas, which will probably get there late,
Yeah.
which is just kind of one of those things. But it was important to me that you had something to unwrap instead of me just trying to Amazon something that just came in an Amazon box.
Right.
Something that we
That's okay
kind of,
too.
even if it's late. So for those of you who are following along on the worksheet, Matt, we had talked before we did this webinar. I had written in the worksheet, gift giving around the holidays has more to do with communication and connection than we realize. In essence, we're trying to communicate. And I just want to give you that fill in the blank for those of you who are like those kind of people that are like with pen and paper. And this is something that you had said when we were talking, Matt, beforehand, but you had said, gift giving really has to do with I see you and I know you. And oftentimes,
Right.
like with the holidays, when we're trying to figure out what to give each other, we're really just trying to communicate that we see each other. I see you, I know you. And that's why we work so hard on those gifts, right? That's why it's easy to give a gift card, but is there something that feels like, isn't there something more personal that I can show you that I know you and I see you? And and so that's a lot of what that's like. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to give you the 5-minute check-in, because it really does give you this ability to hear where each other's at and know, right? That gift giving doesn't have to be about a gift all the time. It can be about knowing where a person is at, hearing where they're at, and literally just like giving the gift of serving somehow, giving the gift of listening, and like Matt said, like being able to do these little things to help me out is such a gift to me. And I think it's reframing that maybe for the holidays and going, you know what, how we interact and connect and communicate with each other can be the greatest gift when we can't exchange gifts or have all the traditions as perfectly as we want to, or as perfectly timed as we want to. I know some of you guys celebrate. I know some families keep the Christmas tree up until the service member comes home in June, let's say, and they have Christmas then. And I've always thought that that's amazing. It's just, it doesn't have to be on a specific time and date. And we get to kind of just celebrate as we need to and want to. But I think the real gift of connection and keeping your family strong is really just staying connected and communicating and being honest about what you need and whether or not that person can actually do something for you. And that takes assertively asking for it. Like not just, no, I got it, I'll just exhaust myself doing it. No, it's literally going, it was a great day that I was like, please just order stocking stuffers. Like, sure, I could try to do a Target pickup, but I don't even have the energy to even think through that. And you came up with such better things. And they were like literally here the day or day after with Amazon. It was great. Perfect.
Yeah, and I want to acknowledge that not all families obviously celebrate Christmas. Some families are
Yes.
celebrating Hanukkah. Some families celebrate Kwanzaa. I mean, there are a multitude of holidays that kind of converge around the same time. So regardless of whatever you're celebrating, going back to what you were talking about with gift giving, Corie, is that thoughtfully chosen words of gratitude and affirmation will always outweigh anything you can buy for someone. Thoughtfully chosen words of gratitude and affirmation. Because when those gifts, they do communicate, I've listened to you, I've paid attention to your needs and wants. I've tried to even use some predictive analysis to find something you didn't even think about for yourself. And oh, didn't I surprise you? But just to be able to speak to another human soul, that I think is absolutely, to be able to say, I see you, I've known you, I've known your flaws and your faults, I've grown up with you. So how much in this time where we actually can't be physically present with our family members, can we take the time to really affirm what it is that we do love and appreciate about them, and to be able to pour into them with words, and to even like practice the art of like letter writing, not just an email, not just a text, or I mean, I still have the letters that best friends of mine sent to me when Mike Blackwell was in Kosovo, when James was in Iraq. All the letters that my father and mom have sent to me, where they were just detailing how they felt about me and what they thought about me and how proud they were. And every time we have to go figuring out like, where's our passport and where's the kids' birth certificates, you come across those things and you pause and, and you just start reading them and you're like, okay, like I have history. I am known by people who love me, and who doesn't love that? So when it's all said and done, it's not the things that you buy for people that leave a lasting impression. It's the way that you tell them that they have left a good lasting impression on you.
Well, and that's also what your mom and I were talking about this morning was, it's really easy to say, what we don't have this during the holidays, when the truth is, one of the things that's obviously imprinted from me and my family is the holidays mean family. The holidays mean togetherness, right? And so I have family. We have family. We're just not, we just can't tangibly touch each other, but we do have family, and we still can celebrate family, and we can still gather together, as a family over Zoom and phone calls and whatever. And we still have that. That's not gone. It's not, and I know that with you being in the time zone that you're in, you'll be able to kind of call in on Christmas morning, and it still be Christmas Day for you. And so we have those things. And I know that some of you listening may not be able to have that luxury during a separation, during a deployment, but again, it's not about the timing and the specific time, right? It's about, do you celebrate being together when you can be together, and not taking those for granted. And I do want to just point out, Lisa made a really good point about staying connected over gaming, which I love. I know that's something that even when we PCS'd here this year, we had to PCS at separate times. The boys and I got here first, and Matt was back in Kansas still. He wasn't able to leave Kansas yet. So we were 2 weeks ahead of him, and it also landed on Matt's birthday. So when we're talking about holidays and missing holidays, there's all kinds of holidays and things that we miss when you have to be apart. And Matt was spending his birthday by himself in Kansas, and the boys had made a Minecraft birthday gift for him, where he was able to enter into Minecraft, and they had built a whole world that was everything Matt, everything Dad, and they made a big birthday cake out of a Captain America shield, and they even had this way of like balloons, and then at the end there was fireworks that spelled out happy birthday. I don't even know how they did it, but it was such a creative way to stay connected. And so, Lisa, I love the fact that you had planted a garden for I think it was for your spouse, and when they woke up, they kind of woke up to something that you had made, in that gaming world. And so there's all kinds of ways to be creative and to stay connected. And so I'm encouraging you guys to do that. And make sure you verbalize these alternative traditional things that you're doing for the holidays, because sometimes we're doing something that's kind of an alternative strategy and the other person doesn't know that that's what you're attempting to do. And so just
Mhm.
say those words out loud. It gives the opportunity and the other person opportunity to win by acknowledging that that's what you're trying to do, instead of them like, yeah, okay, that was nice. Thanks for the flowers, Lisa. Right? When you're like, I put so much effort into that. Right? So just communicating that, I'm so sorry we can't be together. And so since I can't give you this, I'm going to do something for you. So when you wake up, like it's something that's just for
Mhm.
you, or just that little bit of communication makes sure that it kind of plants the seed that of you're trying to
Mhm.
do something as an alternative to what normally makes you feel connected. So the other person doesn't
Right.
miss it, because they don't want to miss it. They want to get it
Mhm.
right.
Which goes back to what we were saying earlier on, which is that when you take away one thing, it actually creates creativity for the other person, and it gets you out of a rut that you're probably normally in, where you kind of normally go about things and you're sitting there going, where's the chemistry that we had, X, Y, and Z? Well, you've been in a rut because you haven't been forced to be creative. So the opportunity to be creative is meaningful. Yeah.
Well, and I just want to acknowledge, I want to get this right. Lisa said he actually did it for her.
Oh,
So
good for
bonus
him.
points
Give
for
him the
him.
points. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
bonus
So
points. Okay, so let's do a few questions before we wrap up today. You guys have been amazing. Stick with us. We still have a few questions to answer that you guys have put in. We're going to answer the holiday questions first. We're going to be doing the fourth part of the series. Again, the USO is following Matt and I as we go through this deployment, and we're going to be authentic as we go along. So I don't know where we're going to be in January, in the thick of it, I'm sure, but we're going to be covering parenting specifically in January. We'll definitely be authentic on how we're doing just in life in general, but that will be our topic for sure. And there's always great questions and things to cover when it comes to parenting. So please, if you're enjoying this, sign up be on the lookout for registering for that. And also share this with other people that it might be beneficial, and give us feedback too, because we want to make this better each time. I want you guys to stick around. So questions are, is it wrong? I feel some relief that the holidays can be uneventful this year. I don't think it's wrong. I think
not at all.
the holidays are uneventful in a lot of ways. And I don't know who asked that question, so I can't say a name, but I don't know about you guys, but in some ways there's so much going on this year, and there's so much going on with spending time apart from you. And there's so much on my shoulders, I think, with being back here at home, that having it be uneventful sounds lovely.
Mhm.
And it does strip away it strips away all of the pomp and circumstance of things that don't have to matter so much. And really, I'm just trying to get to a place of like simmering, like we've been talking about, simmering the holidays down to what matters and what doesn't, and kind of push away all those other things that of trying to force it to be, and I learned some lessons with the boys with Thanksgiving. Like, I'm not going to force something on them. In fact, they're old enough that I'm going to sit them down and go, what do you want Christmas morning to feel like? What does
Mhm.
Christmas feel like to you, and what makes it feel like Christmas to you? Because I think they're going to have an entirely different answer than what my answer is. And I want to be aware of that so that I can be able to tend to that. Anything else you would say about that one, Matt?
No, I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, the entire world is just trying to get through this year. Okay. So it's not like, we're based out of Texas. It's not like just Texas. The entire world is just like, could we just get to the year that the vaccine comes out? If we could just do that, that'd be great. So let's all give one another the grace that we know we each need, which is just let's put 2020 in the rear view and feel more hopeful about the next thing. So, 2020 is the year of I just can't even. And it's okay to go, I'm gonna for any and all of us to go, you know what, I'm just gonna wear sweats for just 2 weeks. I'm just gonna wear the sweats and I'm just gonna putz around the house and make it happen. And then I'm gonna emerge from the cocoon ready for the next year. So let's have like let's have a lot of grace, a
Mhm.
big dose of laughter, and let's get on the other side of this and we'll all be better for it. So
I
yeah.
agree. And to answer the question on how do we get info on the parenting, the next part of this series, the fourth part of this series, you guys will definitely put it out on the dashboard and it will go out on social media. So you definitely will be able to hear about the final date. We needed to make sure that Matt landed where he needed to land and get those time zone differences shifted before we just kind of secured the dates, make sure that he can do that. So you guys will be the first to know what the date of that is. Since you registered for this, we'll be able to reach out to you guys and let you know what the dates are and how you can register. You'll be able to register just like you did for this one. So be on the lookout for that so that you don't miss it. I do want to answer this question, Laura, in the Q&A, even though it's a parenting question, because I know it's going to come up. Actually, it comes up in every webinar we do, and I think it's important enough that I stress it in every single one that we do. And we'll unpack this even more for the parenting question. But the question is about when you have really young children and you're going through a time of separation and you're trying so hard to connect them to their parent that's overseas or wherever they are. And obviously they're too small to talk in the camera and connect. And you're starting to feel that weight of like, I don't even know if they know who their dad is, and you don't want them to feel that way. And then when they get home, are they going to even know who they are? And all of that anxiety, right? Like I hear that almost every time I do a webinar, when I ask questions, it's like probably the number one question I get. And I just want to, even if I have to stress it in every webinar I do, because I've been there, I just want to encourage you, like Matt said earlier, our boys, the second deployment that we had, which was the last deployment, our boys were, I want to say 8 and 5, maybe 4 and, something like that, 4 and 7. They weren't toddlers. They were like preschool kind of age, elementary school age. And they don't remember the deployment. It doesn't mean that Matt did not like leave a lasting impact and that they should have missed him. It's just that kids' day-to-day world is so filled with routine and structure and school and friends, and developmentally kids are so kind of focused on their basic needs and like what's right in front of them and playing, and they're just very present focused. That they're really just thinking about what's happening there in the moment. And our kids remember pictures that we share with them from the deployment. And I might go, do you remember that time when, we did such and such? And they'll be like, oh yeah, that was so great. Remember when your uncle took you to Pikes Peak that day? That was during the deployment. And they're like, oh, really? That was the deployment? Like they don't remember they don't have the same experience we have as adults of the ups and downs and the amount of energy that you're putting into each day, trying to get each day to succeed and trying to keep your marriage strong. And they're not having that same experience. So I just want to just encourage you guys out there to not stress too much on that. I mean, definitely do things to keep allow your baby to hear their dad's voice when you can. And there's little
mom's voice.
Or mom's voice. I'm sorry, the question was specifically for dad. Allow those like the parent voice to be heard. And definitely the USO has a great program where a service member can be reading books and sharing that with the children back at home. Like there's great things that you guys can do. Laura, if you will share your program that you guys do in the chat, that you can do to keep that connection growing and strong. Those things will help. But when it comes to this deep down fear that you have that it's going to scar them, or you're going to have this significant moment where they've forgotten their parent, I just want to ease that burden just a little bit. So Matt, do you want to answer that at all?
I just remember one of Aiden's funniest videos from the first deployment where he was 5, 6?
5.
Like he was much more interested in whatever he was doing on the camera than whatever he was attempting to communicate. And it was very much like, hey dad, how are you doing? I'm having a good time. And then all of a sudden Brave the Frog. And then we were going, Mom, I'm done. And so
exactly
it was just like, okay, well, I'll see you when I see you, bud. But yeah, so you got time.
Yes, you do. And I'm sorry if I'm bouncing all over the place. I'm looking at questions coming in too, but also they've also posted the dashboard in the chat. Laura put up the dashboard of where you can find the previous videos that we have done so far in the series and where this one will be. And I will revise the worksheet that you guys got to update it with what we ended up talking about today. And so that will also be on that dashboard. And it's also the place where you can register for any upcoming the one in January, for example. Okay, we have a little bit more time, Matt, for a few more questions. How do you make your husband happy to celebrate the holidays when he's already miserable being away? I'm going to let you answer that one.
Wow. Yeah.
Hard.
Softball question, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. People have to own their own feelings. They just have to own their own feelings. I'm not in charge. I mean, I can have influence over you and I can hope things for you. But I remember one of the most formative things that you did in our marriage early on, when I was in a bad spot more often than not, was that you just had to own your side of the street. You had to keep your side of the street clean, and you had to not feel like it was your burden and responsibility to manage my emotions. And I know that's hard to say. It's really hard to do. And if you need professional help on doing that, then use your TRICARE benefits and sit and talk with a counselor about that. It can be miserable. I'm not going to say that I'm going to go through the holidays and not shed a tear for missing my family. But what I believe is powerful in that whole process is turning that discomfort into something. For me, I just learned I just can't sit. I can only sit in it long enough before I just kind of get disgusted with myself. And then I'm just like, all right, well, you know what? I can only deal with what's in front of me and what I have an impact on. And I'm going to go have an impact on that because I feel powerless enough as it is. So I miss Corie terribly every single day. She's my person. She's been my person for more than 2 decades. I couldn't love her any more than I already do, but I know that tomorrow I'll love her more than I do today. And so I miss her, and I absolutely miss those boys. I miss playing video games with them. I miss just hearing them laugh. I miss cutting up with them. I even miss them going into great detail about things where I'm like, oh, I'm not halfway interested. But
I'll record it for you.
Yeah, thanks. And that's how I go to sleep. So you can encourage them, you can ask them what you can do for them, but beyond that, we each have to be responsible for our own feelings.
I think it's a great answer. And I think the only thing that I can add to that is, I think I try to validate both sides. Like, I think it's okay to validate that we, like Matt was saying, we are going to have moments that are really hard, and those are real feelings. And I think that's what Matt, I think that's what you and I have. It's really saved us and helped us a lot, is that we feel our feelings. And then we're like, okay, that's what those mottos are about. I think for us is when we say we're going to make it count, those mottos are we're going to have bad days and we're going to feel those feelings, but then what is this going to be worth? What are we going to do with this now? And those mottos kind of helped us step forward and step into, and that's what I'm going to answer that question, is just kind of say, it's okay to sit in the pocket of this is hard. And I think we need to acknowledge that it's hard, because that's, the only reason why it's hard is that we don't want to go through this. We don't want to be apart, and that's valid. But then I think it's about, in the journal for Matt and I, this morning, what I wrote to him was, I want you to enjoy, what you're getting to do over there. And it makes it worth it to me for you to have to be gone. What makes it count for me is that you have moments of joy there, that you form some lasting relationships, and that you have moments where you laugh and moments where you try new foods. And what I love to do that with you 100%. But since I can't do that, it makes it worth it for me to have to go through this knowing that you have had moments of joy too. And so I'm giving you that permission that you don't have
Yeah.
to be sad. And those of you, like when I went overseas in December, I really expected everybody to be just in a terrible spirit and a terrible mood and missing
Mhm.
everybody. And I mean, I don't mean that nobody missed their family. That's not what I'm saying, because everybody that I
Right.
talked to, if they could trade the moment, they would be home with their family members 100%.
Absolutely.
However, every single service member had a spark in their eye because they were there doing what they'd been training to do forever. And they were finally getting to do what they were trained to do. And they were
Right.
doing the thing. And
Mhm.
that's what they said. They said, go home and tell the family members that, it's, yes, we want to be there, but since we can't be there, we are filling our time with things that bring us joy, and we're doing the things that we feel like we've been trained to be good at. And,
Mhm.
and that they're okay. They were okay.
Yeah.
Those little string of lights were not pitiful to them. They were funny,
Mhm.
and there were things to joke about. And I had just missed, when I got to Afghanistan, the USO member was walking me around, and I had just missed the turkey trot where the USO person had literally dressed like a turkey, and all the service member chased them down the runway of where we were,
Mhm.
like to try to catch the turkey. I felt so bad for that USO volunteer. But
Yep.
there's so much goofiness and fun because you guys do such a great job of like turning it into something.
I
And
remember
so,
specifically on the first deployment, we were going around doing our battlefield circulation, and we were out there in the mountains of Afghanistan, and I was going to land on one of our OPs, one of our observation posts. And I was out there, and then all of a sudden, like, you have to have somebody like bringing the chopper in, right? So we're out on these Black Hawks, these UH-60s, and we're landing, and you look out there, and there is one of my favorite mortarmen that is just like incorrigible, dressed like Santa Claus. And so you see Santa Claus like bringing you in. Somebody had sent him a Santa Claus outfit. And so like you're like, we're getting permission to land on top of the mountain from Santa Claus. And I still have a picture of sitting on his lap and taking a picture. I was like, this is the funniest thing in the world. So you always have those people in a unit that no matter what are going to try and make it a silly, fun moment. And then it's a joy to be a part of that.
so, and maybe we need to learn some of that back at home, like maybe that's what we
Yep.
need to be thinking of a little bit more of, how to be creative and silly. I think a little bit more back at home and
Hmm.
take ourselves a little less seriously. I think
Yeah.
to end our time, I'll have Laura come in after we answer this question. And it's gonna be kind of a fast answer. Um, it's actually two, but I think it's a great way to end. The
Okay.
first one is about how to, what are some ways to stay romantic when this one specifically is asking when the soldier is a female and the husband is back at home. And so I think we can throw out a couple of ideas, not just the journal, of ways to kind of bring that romance into your life. I mean, I know the journal for me is how Matt is really speaking into my life and being very romantic in his words to me. And that's just speaking a love language for me. But I don't know, Matt, you may not have an answer to this question, but since there are female soldiers, is there anything that female soldiers talk about or ask for, or ways that they might want to stay connected? And I'll speak from a woman's perspective, but I just don't know if you've had female soldiers that have talked about staying connected in their
So
marriage.
I will take a high level perspective on this whole thing. What is romance between the two people? That's the question I would ask. I mean, I can't tell somebody what it is that you have to do to be romantic, because within a couple, between two significant others, between two spouses, boyfriend and girlfriend, whatever the case is, um, the two of you have to decide what romance is. And really, romance, the concept is, how do you win the heart of the other person with affection and attention? So what wins your heart with affection and attention? I have to be able to answer that question for Corie. She has to answer that question for me. And then I'm given the opportunity to pursue her heart in that manner.
Mhm.
So I will flip that question back over there and say, have they told you what to do in order to win their heart, to catch their eye, to win their affection, to make them feel all those little googly feelings inside? That is why we're in relationships in the first place, to be seen, and known and understood. So flip that back on you and say, I don't have the answer for you, but I'm sure between you and your significant other, then hopefully with conversation and openness, honesty and vulnerability, with affirmation, not saying, well, when you do this, I really hate you, but with positive things to be able to affirm that and to build on that.
I think that's a great way to answer that question. I think it's a great way. I think the last one then really comes down to coping skills during this time, during the holidays. And I think that's the big question. The question is actually how to remain, this person is asking how to remain centered. They're searching for a place to live also during this pandemic. There's some of you that this is PCS season for some of you, probably. I mean, we just went through PCS ourselves during the pandemic. And so in my heart, I was just hoping all of the military would shut down and stop doing that. But if they haven't, and you're still going through that, which you probably are, I think it's a valid thing. But I think the deeper question is really about how do you center yourself regardless of what stress is coming your way, whether it's external family members or whether it's a PCS or whether it's trying to figure out how to parent and offer these traditions to the holiday season, or just what to do during COVID and the stress that you might be feeling that way, work stress, whatever the stress is, it's how do you center yourself is the question. And so my answer to that really, and I think it's a great way for us to close, is regardless of what you're going through as a couple and as a family, this is very stressful to go through. And anytime you go through something stressful, it just kind of disrupts your system. It disrupts your spirit, and you feel just not centered and not at peace and just not in a good place. And in a way, it's similar to what Matt just said about knowing your spouse, is you have to know yourself. And I think that the thing that I've been asking myself every day when I have those overwhelming feelings that I shared with Matt today, there's only so much that he can do to help me when he's far away. So I have to ask myself then, if I'm overwhelmed, what are the things that bring me peace? What are the things that slow my heart down and slow my mind down? And music, I know, is one of those things for me. Sometimes it's running does that for me. But I have to daily ask myself, like, what is it that I need? How do I center myself? How do I develop the self-control of my own anxiety? Do you need to have somebody to go talk to? There's no shame in that, but it's really about asking yourself, what does the centering for me? And then I have to do those things. Like if I don't do them, then I'm the one that's responsible for allowing it to continue to build. So anything else for you, Matt?
No, I just think about, like, I lean on historical things for sometimes for encouragement. I think about Britain going through World War II and constantly what they had to give up and what they had to live without, and just to be able to make it through. And so sometimes you're just going to have moments where life is not what you want it to be, and it's very difficult. It's easier said than done, but I remember Winston Churchill saying, if you're going through hell, keep going. If you're going through something difficult, do the things that Corie was telling you to do, but keep going. This is not going to be the way that it's going to be next year. So begin to make decisions for yourself, what life is going to look like when you get on the other side of this, so that it gives the difficulty you're currently in meaning and purpose. And it goes back to that make it count aspect. If you give it meaning and purpose, it makes it a whole lot easier to really grind it out and get to the other side of it.
Thanks. It was good to see you.
Good to see you too. You're a pretty little girl.
I love you. And I hope you have a great rest of your night. And thank you for who you are to our boys and who you are to me. And thank you for all the gestures that you do, even from a distance, for waking us up the other morning at 6 o'clock in the morning with the Amazon echoes all on full blast. It was an interesting way to wake up. My boys coming out of their rooms going, what's going on? I was like, your dad's trying to be romantic. It was like an interesting deployment experience. That's hands down best memory ever. But no,
Won't
seriously.
be the last time.
I know, I loved it. And so thank you guys so much for joining us and for allowing us to be honest with you and for being honest with us. We really enjoyed the chat and the interaction. And so Laura, thank you so much for inviting us to do this and giving Matt and I a project to stay connected on during